This is Wes,
And this is Corey.
and today we're going to try to stay on topic. So, we started talking about favorite underrated actors, and she had initially said Phoebe Cates because she's a big Drop Dead Fred fan.
Okay.
And, you know, other than Fast Times and Gremlins, I can't think of too much that she's really big for. I mean, there's Karina, and there's Princess Caribou.
But didn't she retire, though?
I mean, I guess she officially retired, but that would be due to the fact that her career never took off like a rocket. Fast Times, everybody focused on the fact that you see her topless, right? Gremlins comes out. It's relatively a B horror movie for the time. It's got good special effects.
But it blew up.
And it blew up, but she didn't blow up.
No.
And neither did, was Zach Gallagher? Isn't that who plays the star in that?
I honestly don't remember the guy's name, but it was all about the Gremlins.
Right.
You know, they were the stars.
Right.
The humans in that were
Gizmo.
secondary.
Gizmo and the Gremlins. That was the big thing.
Stripe.
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe
Okay.
is my favorite underrated actor. And I already know how that sounds, but I want to explain it.
Okay.
So, outside of the 7 big Harry Potter movies, most people can't name more than 1 or 2 things that Daniel Radcliffe is in.
I know he's about to be in Weird, which looks kind of fun.
It does. It actually looks really good.
Yeah.
But there and again, I'm a Daniel Radcliffe fan. And hey, I love Harry Potter. But I've liked everything I've seen him in, or at least his role in it.
Yeah.
And I think he's limited because he's had to spend years just getting out of the shadow of being Harry Potter, to where a lot of people didn't want to cast him. They didn't want to cast Harry Potter in their movie. They didn't think Harry Potter could be sexy. I've heard that.
You know, along those same lines, and one that I've always kind of thought of in the same vein is Elijah Wood.
Okay.
You know, yes, he did stuff as a kid, but then he was Frodo.
Yeah.
And, you know, for years, he's Frodo.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was in Sin City as a killer, you know, a dark character. I don't even know if he had any lines. If he did, it wasn't much. And, you know, that was dark. Well, it's easy for an actor to get pigeonholed because of a specific role. You know, they have a hard time getting out of that role.
Tom Welling and Superman.
I don't know that guy means all that much to me. Now, I want to jump off this a little bit here, though, because you were talking about underrated actors, and I don't really want to dwell on anybody in particular. But
Sure.
when you say underrated actors, one person's the first thing that pops into my mind. Keith David. I love Keith David and have for 30 plus years now.
Part of the greatest fight scene in movie history.
Which would be?
They Live.
I haven't seen in a long time.
Because of how realistic it looks.
Yeah.
Because it's just 2 guys fighting in an alley, you know, fists, feet, pulling hair, you know, hitting each other in the gut, kicking each other while they're down.
Outside of that, though, Keith David, what I like about him, for one, he's got a great voice, which he does a lot of voice work.
He has a cadence for sure.
But his delivery and he can be deadpan. He gives you those looks, man.
Keith David is an actor like Tim Curry. I judge you by where you know Keith David from, and I'm going to start with Men at Work.
That's where I know him from initially, dude.
Men at Work, man. What a breakout role.
I loved that movie. That movie's great without him, but he adds so much just as to bounce off of Charlie and Emilio, you know, and it's fantastic. Just him riding with them in the garbage truck and his ex-military mentality. And they're a couple of screwballs that don't take anything seriously. Well, every time I see Keith David in anything, and I've seen him in tons of things, and it's so hard to name because he's like the top echelon of B-listers. and you lose track of B-listers real easily.
It's funny. One of the first things that pops in my head when I think of Keith David is the Dead Presidents movie trailer.
Excellent movie. I love that movie.
It is.
And his part in it, is kind of the sort of mentor to Lorenz Tate's character.
Lorenz Tate is one of those people that disappeared, and I loved him.
And he's really good because he can vanish into a role, because his character in Dead Presidents is so much different from O-Dog in Menace to Society, and yet both are kind of grounded in the same sort of pissed off mentality. One coming from the streets, one coming from the military in the Vietnam War. And he's really good. That's actually the first movie I ever saw, original War Machine.
Terrence Howard?
Yes. First movie I ever saw him in.
I don't think I even recognized Terrence Howard before Hustle and Flow.
And funny thing is, I never saw Hustle and Flow, even though I've heard it's great. But when that came out, I was like, hey, that's that guy from Dead Presidents that Lorenz Tate beat the shit out of him with a pool cue. Fact of the matter is, Terrence Howard's another good, and he became an A-lister eventually, but
I like Don Cheadle. I like him as Rhodey. I would have loved to have seen Terrence Howard stick around so we could see what he would have done with the character.
Terrence Howard does bring a solid charisma to his roles. Things happen. Actors get replaced all the time. I mean, Edward Norton.
It takes me out of the magic sometimes.
It can. Now, it is nice, just like in the She-Hulk episode, where they can crack jokes about that. And
if enough time has passed and people have accepted the new actor, then you can crack jokes like that.
I mean, Roseanne did it with Becky years ago.
It's easy to do it in a comedy, though. Anytime you replace a good actor and a good popular character on a show, whether it be just replace the current actor with somebody more attractive, or just write the character out to replace them with a younger, more attractive character, it's very noticeable. Even when I was younger and they did it in Sliders, they replaced Professor Arturo, who was played by John Rhys Davies at the time, with Carrie Warrer, which the only mainstream film I can even think of she was in was Eight-Legged Freaks, David Arquette.
Yeah.
Before and after, she just did a lot of Skinamax flicks.
Right. So another underrated actor that pops into my head is Alan Tudyk.
Oh, love Alan Tudyk.
And he has over the years gained a bit of weird sort of notoriety because of the characters he plays and how he plays them.
Well, there again, he's another person I would say, well, where do you know him from?
Firefly Serenity.
Oh, wow.
He's Wash, man.
No, he's Wash. Absolutely. Firefly for sure, but, A Knight's Tale. Honestly, was what I was thinking of.
And he is so great in that because of the anger problems.
They're all great in that.
I feel like he got outshined in that movie, which is a rare thing if he's around, by Paul Bettany. Worked his way up the ladder as well. And
Paul Bettany was so good as a voice, they had to make him a character.
I mean, right?
I mean, Vision in the comic books, for all you listening out there who do not know, Jarvis is not Vision in the comic books. Wonder Man is.
Wonder Man, I know very little about.
I mean, he was so forgettable, they used his personality to put him in an android and make him the Vision.
Gotcha.
So you are not alone.
Then that's all I need to know.
There you go. And I believe Hank Pym made Vision in the comic books, not Tony Stark and Bruce Banner.
I believe that's right. I remember reading that a while back.
Hey, if we're wrong, let us know. I don't mind being corrected.
But back to Alan Tudyk, man. He is just so over the top ridiculous in some of his roles. And and the reverse of the Paul Bettany, they made him a voice of a robot in Rogue One, and he was probably the best character in that. And I love Rogue One.
He was Sonny in iRobot.
That's right.
Which is very much the first voiceover I can remember him being. That's not to say he hasn't been another voice in something else.
And now he's done quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Do you remember the show Strangers with Candy? Talking about little roles.
I didn't really watch it. I mean, I flipped past it a few times.
He was in one of the only 2-part episodes. He played a cult leader named Father.
That's funny because he played a cult-like preacher in a few episodes of Arrested Development. He played it super straight-laced. He was married to Ione Skye in that, and their daughter was dating George Michael. And
her?
Yes. And Ione Skye, I guess, is so bored with her religious lifestyle that I don't remember if she did get with him, but she tried to get with Michael.
She tries to get with Michael because of the allure of their secular life. No, I was a fan. I loved the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development.
So, a lot of time had passed. The actors were all really different by the time they brought that back. Now, if you go to watch it now, it's different than when it first came out on Netflix. That's 4th season. Because they filmed it all weird because of the availability of the actors.
Oh, yeah, they had to recut it so it actually made coherent sense.
Well, now, if you go find it now, it's recut.
Right.
But you actually can, and there's some settings in there where you can watch it the way it was released, when it was originally released.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a totally different feel now, and it's more like it should be. But watching that the first time, the way they initially released it, was mind-boggling, but yet still kind of fun in that you would see the same scene from 8 different perspectives over the course of that season. But
has Netflix ever saved a show, or have they just been able to bring it back for a couple of seasons?
Black Mirror still exists, and I heard there's new episodes coming out soon.
But that's a Netflix original.
No, it's not.
Really?
It was a BBC.
No shit.
Yeah.
The first season's BBC? It's one of those shows on Netflix, when you go to it, they pretty much shoehorn you into watching the first episode of our season 4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
is a good episode. It's the Star Trek loosely based episode.
The Jesse Plemons.
Yes. What a great episode, man.
That's a guy right there. That's a...
Talking about underrated actors?
Yes. So for me, and probably with most people, my introduction to him is Breaking Bad. It's Todd.
Yeah.
Good old Todd. I don't know what is about that guy. And look, he's a good actor, but to look at him, he looks like the dumbest son of a bitch who ever lived.
He has a punchable face.
Oh my God, does he? I don't know if you've watched the show Fargo, but he's in one of the seasons with Kirsten Dunst. He's the same character. Like, it's him trying to do his best William H. Macy from the Fargo movie almost. It's.
Speaking of underrated actors.
Now look, I've been a fan of William H. Macy for a long time because I share a birthday with him. So he falls under a special little category for me.
You know what's wonderful about William H. Macy?
What's that?
Everything.
Exactly.
But I always think of his role in Psycho. It was a very small role. He plays Arbogast, the detective.
Okay.
It's just a really, he's in a couple of scenes. But his scene with Vince Vaughn, talking to him in the lobby, walking up the stairs, that is one movie I like the remake more than the original.
There are a few like that. It's funny this comes up because recently, we've all seen the news and read about Heche.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a shame.
and that's a tragic tale. But I read a very good article the other day, 4 or 5 days, maybe a week after she died, and it kind of highlighted the fact that she had a very tumultuous upbringing and had a rough life as a kid. And I really don't want to get into all of it because it's pretty brutal stuff. But the in the article, it also was highlighting her career and her personal life and how they coincided in ways, how one affected the other. But the highlight for this particular author, and I couldn't even begin to tell you where I read this, um, was her role in Psycho.
Yeah.
And how, she could have easily just tried to copy Vivian Lee, is that right?
Yes.
Faithful to the original and how it was done, but did it her own way and possibly outshine Vivian Lee.
I don't think it's in question. Anne Heche was a great actress. A great example of that is I hated her, man. I watched John Q, and she is so despicable in that movie that I can't stand to look at her face, man, because she played that part so well.
Introduction to Anne Heche for me was Volcano.
Unfortunately, growing up the way I did, my introduction into Anne Heche was she was Ellen DeGeneres' girlfriend with an alcohol problem.
And see, I knew of her before that. I was a big Tommy Lee Jones fan, still am.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, I would watch anything with Tommy Lee Jones in it. If he was in it, I watched it.
Well, what's the first thing you can remember seeing Tommy Lee Jones in?
And I'm going to say the first thing that I can remember, not the oldest thing, because I've seen some of his stuff in the 70s. Like Executioner Song. You ever seen that?
No.
That's, he plays a killer, and he gets executed at the end. He goes to the trial. He's a remorseless killer. And it's weird seeing a younger Tommy Lee Jones play that, too. And also like Coal Miner's Daughter, stuff like that. I watched that, and look, I'm not a country music guy by any stretch, but I watched that because Tommy Lee Jones was in it.
The first thing I remember it being pointed out to me, that's Tommy Lee Jones, was Under Siege.
I've seen so many Tommy Lee Jones movies, it's hard to say what the first one I can remember seeing him in. I can tell you.
Okay.
And it's a movie that I haven't watched in years because it's never streaming when I look for it. Cobb, where he played old Ty Cobb doing the interview to old Stumpy over the course of time, and it flashes back to him playing as in baseball as Ty Cobb. He is magnificent in that role, and I have been a fan of Tommy Lee Jones since. Love me some John Goodman, by the way. Big Dan Teague and Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
I love Big Dan Teague and Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
One of my and that is such a great movie with a lot of great moments. Look, you and I have talked about the Coen brothers before.
Sure.
Not at super duper length, but it comes up. And I have been a big Coen brothers fan since I first saw Fargo years ago, because I worked at a little home-owned video store around the time that came out.
Did they direct The Ref?
No.
Who did? Because that just has a very Coen Brothers feel to it.
Not sure on that one.
But you know the movie I'm talking about.
Yeah, Dennis
right?
Leary.
Yeah.
I want to say Annette Bening.
And Kevin Spacey.
And we're not going to talk about Kevin Spacey.
We are not going to talk about Kevin Spacey.
That might take an entire episode to talk about Kevin Spacey. But
the highs and the lows.
That's my point. But yes, The Ref. It's been a long time since I watched it, but I was an MTV kid, so I knew who Dennis Leary was.
Oh well, yeah.
And I always liked Dennis Leary because in the 90s, he was in your face, he pissed you off, and he was an asshole, and that sold, man. People love that.
Literally sang a song about it.
He did. And I have sang that song many times over the years because I, too, am an asshole.
Well, it's funny that we made our way to Dennis Leary because talk about underrated actors.
I never could get into that show where he's the fireman rescue me.
I was gonna say which one because he's been a fireman twice.
Oh well, okay. Dennis Leary's played some interesting parts over the years, but always sort of has that asshole mentality at heart, and that's if you're casting Dennis Leary, you're trying to get an asshole.
Look, I don't know if it was the sets or the lighting or the cast or if it was just the right time, but Judgment Night,
where he plays the bad guy and he kills it.
Look, this movie, if you haven't seen Judgment Night, is a real world scenario, but is one of the most horrific movies I've ever watched.
Man, it will make your heart palpitate in ways that you have nightmares about.
I agree. It's very much a slasher movie, but without a mythical slasher being the root of the evil.
Which is what makes it so scary, because it's just a dude.
Oh no, that movie could have happened to anybody.
Any day, anytime.
I mean, this movie is about 4 guys and they're just on their way to a game. Some shit happens that could have happened to anybody and a nightmare ensues.
I'm sure it probably feels a little dated now and I haven't seen it in a while, but y'all should check it out. It's Cuba Gooding Jr.,
Emilio Estevez, Jeremy Piven.
Yeah, Jeremy Piven's a guy who pops up here and there.
Yeah.
Jeremy Piven's in either you love him, you hate him, or you don't know who he is.
Agreed.
I love Jeremy Piven. Like, he can be an asshole, but he's so fun.
Well, you said you're an MTV kid, so I know you've seen PCU.
Dude, I have PCU.
Of course.
I've had PCU since I've had DVDs, dude.
You're that guy
Don't wear the shirt with the name of the band on it you're going to see, man.
Can you blow me where the Pampers is? I say that all the time.
That was my introduction to Jon Favreau, man.
Jon Favreau, Jeremy Piven,
David Spade's in there.
Gary Busey's crazy ass son's in that.
Yeah, Archer's mom is in PCU.
That's awesome.
For all y'all out there, Archer is my favorite show of all time. It never gets old, and it is still airing as we speak. But yes, PCU, underrated at the time, but
that's got a cult following.
It
man.
does. Well, it was like the whole thing when it came out, it was saying, like a modern Animal House.
Now, bear in mind, Animal House is my brother's favorite movie. Yeah. I grew up with Animal House. Yeah. I love Animal House. Animal House is a classic.
It is, but it comes from a time where the comedy was a little different. And my example of that will always be Porky's. And to me, Animal House and Porky's are closer than Animal House and PCU ever will.
I agree.
Because of the type of comedy, it was a little more raunchy. They definitely were more blatant about mistreatment of women. The fact is, an Animal House in and of itself is great. I hear a lot of times, and we've talked about it, and I've talked about it with my wife and many others, about how certain movies you talk about, it's like, yeah, you couldn't make that movie now. But
now, Blazing Saddles, you couldn't get away with making today.
I mean, yes, good example. And there's many others.
You know why Porky's was better than Animal
House? Because it was a little more realistic.
Because it didn't have John Belushi in it.
John Belushi.
We've been sitting here talking about underrated actors.
Yeah.
So I feel the need to bring up overrated actors. And John Belushi is look, I don't want to shit all over the man's memory, but
he just played himself.
Look, he's one of those comedians or actors or celebrities that their popularity is based more on hearsay than actual enjoyment.
John Belushi's the Kool-Aid man. He just busted into a room. Oh, yeah. And
right.
Some shit.
But, it's like Yul Brynner in The King and I. You've never seen Yul Brynner in The King and I, but you're told it was great. So you have to accept the fact that it's great.
Sure, I never saw it.
There you go. John Belushi. You know, he's the original, like, sweaty fat guy who's funny. Man, John Belushi's fucking annoying. Okay? He plays the same character.
He's playing John Belushi.
He plays John Belushi. Look, just because he had the nerve to play, you know, Samurai Delicatessen, which is racist as shit, by the way. Most of our popular celebrities and creators and artists and musicians throughout the years have been under the influence of something. So clearly there's a correlation into substance abuse and what makes creators great.
I want to quote, there's a song by Tool that, you know, all those albums and tapes and CDs that have enhanced your lives throughout the years, those artists who made all those, real fucking high on drugs.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it was wrote by cocaine, not Stephen King. He will tell you that.
And you know, I can see that. You get under the influence of something deep enough and it messes with your mind. And if you're already the creative type, it just comes out through that. Lesson for the day, kids. Drugs are bad, but they can make you creative.
Well, I don't think we did a very good job of staying on topic today.
No.